Chapter 2 The Young Artist. Pablo moved back to Barcelona, where he hung out with a bunch of artists, poets, and writers at a cafe called Els Quatre Gats, the Four Cats. They called themselves modernistes, modern artists. In 1900, Pablo had his first one-man show at the cafe. There were more than 50 portraits of friends and family, and another 60 or so drawings and paintings. One was a painting of a priest at the bedside of a dying woman. It was accepted for a show at the World's Fair in Paris. It was all Pablo needed as an excuse to move to Paris. An old art school friend, Carles Casagemas, went with him. Carles and Pablo had no money. Their apartment had no furniture, so Pablo painted furniture and bookcases on the walls. Then it didn't look so bare. He even painted a safe on the wall, as if they had valuable things to put in it. But the apartment didn't matter. They were in Paris. It was the center of the art and fashion world. Paris was full of life, and Picasso was full of energy. He was seeing the art of Monet, Degas, Cezanne, Van Gogh, Gauguin, and Toulouse-Lautrec. Paris was so colorful, and soon so were Pablo's paintings. For 2 months, he painted Paris scenes. He sold 3 pastels of bullfights. That was encouraging. Pablo loved Paris, but poor Carles was broken-hearted. His girlfriend had left him, so Carles and Pablo moved back to Pablo's hometown in Spain. Pablo's family did not like what they saw when he walked in the door. The way he was dressed, and his long hair. They were sure he was wasting his life. So Pablo moved to Madrid. He helped start an art magazine. He did political cartoons for the magazine about the sorry state of the poor. He left behind his friend Carles, who was still terribly depressed and difficult to be around. Soon, Carles Casagemas returned to Paris. He was at his wit's end. First, he tried to shoot his old girlfriend. Then, he shot himself and died. Pablo was in shock. He may have also felt guilty about leaving his friend in such bad shape. Carlos's death affected Picasso's painting. He painted 2 dark funeral scenes and 2 death portraits of Carlos. Then he began painting with the color blue. Pablo said, "It was thinking of Casagemas that made me start painting in blue." He did a self-portrait in 1901 that was mostly in blues. It made him look very sad. Later, this time became known as Picasso's Blue Period. From 1901 to 1904, Pablo moved back and forth between Barcelona and Paris. He lived in cheap hotel rooms and run-down apartments. Pablo shared one apartment with Max Jacob, a poet. They could only afford 1 bed, so Pablo slept in it during the day, and Max slept in it at night. Pablo worked at night, a habit that continued for the rest of his life. Because he often couldn't afford to buy canvases and paints, Pablo did lots of drawings. His subjects were beggars, blind people, lonely people, and prisoners. Pablo cared about these people. For models, he visited a women's prison in Paris. All his life, Pablo loved painting women. It was 1903. In only a little over a year, Pablo did 50 paintings using tones of blue and green. No one bought them. People didn't want to put such depressing pictures on their walls. Pablo's dad and a lot of his friends were sure Pablo was headed in the wrong direction with his strange blue paintings. But did Pablo listen? No. He did what he wanted. Chapter 3. Life